everybody. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Eric Ramirez, and we've got the co-host here,
Mando Gomez.
Yeah. This is officially episode 1, or I'm calling it season 1, episode 1. We did have our introductionary episode last time, calling it episode 0. Today we're actually going to number 1, so pretty exciting stuff here. We got a lot to unpack today. We're going to talk a little bit about some family experiences that we had recently, maybe a little bit of Hispanic history, culture, stuff like that. And we wanted to talk a little bit about this movie that's out on Netflix, I believe. No, it's on Disney.
It's on Disney Plus. Yeah.
Yep. Called Flaming Hot. It's about the hot Cheeto story. Really interesting story on that. And then we're going to kind of round out a little bit more on the tech side, talk a little bit about Tesla, then the BlackRock ETF that's been in the news lately. Gomez, anything else you want to add?
No, let's go. Dale.
Really fun. I had some family that was came into town last week. She works for Shell. She was in China, and she just came back recently. She's going to be here for about a month, and then she's off for another like 1 or 2 year long stint over in Canada. It's kind of a continuation of a project. But anyway, she came into town. She's like, "Hey, I miss everybody. You haven't seen everybody in a long time. Let's get everyone together, have a pachanga party." She went all out. We had mariachis there.
Yeah, Hispanics, we don't need an excuse, right? It's just, it could be Tuesday and we do a party.
Yeah, it's so funny. But she normally goes all out. So everyone really shows up. Plenty of drinks, food, entertainment, catching up. So, but there was a little distraction that happened. Let me tell you. Okay. One of my tios, he's actually from San Antonio. He drives down for these parties and everything. And he was super worried. Like I'm telling you, he his face turned white.
Why? What happened?
White, ghost white. He goes, as soon as I walk in, by the way, I walk in, front door, they're like, "Oh, Eric, they're looking for you." I'm like, "What happened?" Oh no. They're like, Theo got hacked. I'm like, he got hacked. They're like, they're hacking him right now. I'm like, oh God.
And Theo didn't know that was you.
Yeah, I know, right? Theo, what's your password?
Password 123. Right?
That's the problem, right? Well, Either way, so I find my Theo and he's like, "Eric, they're hacking me. The guy, his name is Dennis. He got me good. He got into my email too. I'm trying to delete everything. I can't do it." I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And by the way, like, I'm not like a huge Facebook user or anything. So I don't know anything about the app or how it works. And I told him, hey, he hands me his iPhone. He's like, here, it's like fix it, stop it, whatever. I'm like, did you try rebooting it? No.
It's not Windows, man.
Yeah, no. So okay, he explained it to me. He's like, I don't know. I gave my password to WhatsApp. I'm like, wait a minute, is this Facebook or WhatsApp? I'm like, never give your password to like, okay. So, and I didn't realize. I think Facebook owns WhatsApp.
Yeah, they own. Yep.
I didn't know, but he was talking about like he didn't like a password recovery or something like that. So it turns out, long story short, that one way or another, Dennis, the hacker, and he calls him Dennis because the guy's email shows up on his account. He took his account. I don't know how he got his password, whether it was a password 123 or whatever, or he actually gave him the password. He thought he gave him the password when he sent it through WhatsApp, but I think he did an account recovery. It's all real fuzzy. There was a lot of drinking going on, so I can't tell you exactly.
There are so many techniques, man, like phishing techniques.
Exactly.
As you know, right? They can send an email, or they might try like just to get links, just to get the different authentication. But okay, they got it. So what do you did?
So basically it turned out, and the guy also got then access to his email account. So
probably
he probably had a shared password, like that's a no-no. And my Theo he ended up deleting his email account, like completely.
Wow.
He's like, I don't need it. He deleted it. Well, the thing is, that email account was associated with his Facebook, so he couldn't even recover the password to his, or recover the account to his email account because he deleted it. So he was actually in a pretty bad situation. The thing is, I don't want to say the funny thing is, but this is not like it just, he's like, this is the same thing that happened to cousin so and so, also in the room, and he's just laughing. He's like, hey, you got to be careful where you surfing, and it's funny, my tío's probably, I don't know, I think he's in his 60s, mid 60s, and my other cousin, he's in his 70s maybe, or close to 70. So it's kind of funny seeing their interactions with the technology. They're just not very familiar with it, but they're trying, so that's really good. I can appreciate that. But what happens, being like the IT guy or the techie guy, you're always going to get called on to try and fix it
for you.
By the way, I couldn't fix it. So
go to the you send them with if they have a Mac, you send them with the Apple people, right?
Yeah, it's like vaya con Dios. How does that work? Like I thought he was gonna like have a heart attack or stroke out. He was like seriously super worried by the end of the night. And by the way, the mariachis are playing in the background, and I'm here in the corner playing with his iPhone, trying to figure out what happened. We locked Dennis out, so Dennis no longer had access to that account. Good. We were able to change his password. He had accidentally created a new account, because I think Facebook, you can ask for a recovery account, and it takes some of the information from your old account, makes you a new one. He thought that was Dennis pretending to be him. So we deleted that account. It's so very confusing. Nothing is straightforward. I don't know how anyone that gets into this situation can actually get anything done. Facebook, they should look into like streamlining this, but I know once you do, the hackers, the Dennises of the world try to take advantage, right? But we got him safe. He still could not get into his account though, because we changed his password and things like that, but he had 2-factor authentication. I asked him, do you know what 2-factor authentication is? He's like, no. It's like, well, you had it set up on your account. Either that or Dennis did it somehow.
Yeah, sure.
And so he couldn't get. Now Facebook, they said send us your ID and stuff like that, and we'll do a manual verification. So I don't know if he ended up doing that or not. But I said, look,
just for the audience, always try to set it up right. I know that it's a hassle, but at least your phone number, and there are techniques as well to even do a swim swap, right? But I don't want to get into that. But yeah, if you add maybe that, or there is also tools for getting the tokens. You have like the Google Authenticator, things like that to help you. But yeah, at least your email and your Facebook account is worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's how a lot of people keep in touch. Like, we have a lot of families still in Mexico. Like that's
Facebook. Everybody has and WhatsApp.
And
like
WhatsApp.
It's not very common here in US, but in Latin America and as well in India as well, they use it a lot. And I think that it was. Do you remember the BlackBerry?
Yeah.
It used to be just for some of the messaging, right? Because obviously they were charging you the text messages. So then WhatsApp became very popular because it was kind of free messages and as well calls. But yeah, I'm digressing. So what happened with the tío then?
Well, okay, so they started passing around shots, and we gave up for the night. But I did help them the next day. We submitted the ID and stuff to Facebook, and they said it looks like you're from a different location. He traveled in from San Antonio, right? So I said, try it again from home. They'll see that you're going to be on your normal IP address, and hopefully that works out for him. So hopefully you got to figure it out, because that's where all your connections are at, right? You're going to have to start over, and he can't use his own name because, it's just locked out. So
yeah, there was a lawsuit recently that I saw somebody that he was trying to get the account, their files, and Facebook was like, no, I'm not going to get you the data. And it's like, well, how come? It's my data, right?
Yeah.
So, and the person actually went through a lawsuit and got the award because, it's their data.
Yeah, it's their data. I know there's always stuff like that. I think Google has a whatchamacallit, class action they're awarding. So hey, if you happen to use Google like 10 years ago, maybe, which a lot of us have, I think you can get a little chunk of change from Google because they shared your information without them having permission to. So I saw it on a TikTok. So I need to go sign up. If I get a $5,
so are you in
for
TikTok dancing as well?
Hey, watch next. Mando, we can do, what are they called? A stitch where you start and I do the next part and we go back.
Yeah.
Comment below if you want to see it.
I mean, right now the information is flowing though. Like everything starts in TikTok, right? It moves to Reddit, then it moves to other social medias. But yeah, people is there, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, so that wasn't the only drama that happened at the party. I'm telling you, these things are pretty lively. So, night went on. Everyone had some food. By the way, we had one of our favorites, Lupe Tortilla. We had Lupe Tortilla, fajitas. Lime fajitas.
That restaurant is so good, and we are not being sponsored by them. But...
Call us, Lupe Tortilla. So we had, for those not familiar, it's like a Tex-Mex fajita chain. They put lime in their fajitas, so they're very lemony.
Not just that, man. The tortilla is very. It's a flour tortilla, right? But they made them there, and it's like kind of big and very thin. So, it is good. And I should stop by.
And getting hungry, right? But okay. Anyways, digress again. But really, what I wanted to get to is like, of course, the mariachis are freaking blasting in the background, and I see my one of my uncles and talking to a cousin, right? They probably haven't seen each other in a while, right? Just with COVID and everything, so they're just catching up, and you see a lot of this hand waving going on. And
karate chopping and shit.
Now you say that, but it's true. Like all of a sudden, you see one cousin, one's female, one male, right? Grab the other's hand, and you just see him go like that. Like I'm like,
going.
What happened? And there's a little bit of back and forth. And mind you, I'm just a few feet away, but it's just so loud I can't really hear what's going on. And then you see one of them walk away. I'm like, everyone's like, oh. Hey, what happened? Like they're trying to get the chisme, right? Get the gossip. So, turns out, and this is so weird. This is so weird to me. It's just like he said, she called me a Mexican. I'm like, well, and apparently she called him. What she was saying was my tío mispronounced something in Spanish, and she was like making fun of him, and she was like, hey, you're Mexican, aren't you? Like you should know how to say this or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm not, I'm Tejano, I was born here in Texas. Like they were just being stubborn or whatever. But it's kind of funny, like, okay, how, like, is this a big deal? Does this happen to you? Do you get called out for saying things wrong? I say things wrong all the time, but I don't think I'm getting called out, right?
Every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's an interesting one, but right? Did you were able to figure out? Did you ask him, or you just right now is like it's just the.
I don't know what word he was trying to say, but like to me, it's just really interesting. Like, okay, this dynamic about. She said, "You're Mexican." And he's like, no, I'm Tejano. Of course, he's Hispanic. Parents his parents actually, I think his dad is also a Texan. Are born in Texas, I think. But I don't know how far back that really goes. Maybe the lines were a little more blurry back then. Either way, they're Tejanos. And so, but it almost sounded like he took offense to it. And he's like saying, no, I'm Tejano. Have you seen like this identity stuff like,
dude, I do, and it's actually at home. So I was born and raised in Mexico, right? So then I moved maybe almost close to 20 years ago, and for me, the reason why I'm in Texas, I do not feel like now, in the way that I think, that the way that I think, that I can go back to Mexico City, right? And for many reasons, but also I don't feel like a super welcome like an American, right? Even that I'm an American citizen. Texas is kind of in the middle.
The spirit.
So which kind of true, right? So, and it is, the food is a Tex-Mex, right? It's a mix. So to your question, I have two daughters, right? And they are like, it's funny because they're Tex-Mex, literally.
Yeah.
They were born here, right, in Texas, and it's interesting because some words they cannot even pronounce them either, and sometimes I mock them. It's like, sweetie, you're brown. Like, you're supposed to know what is a tortilla, right? Because sometimes they will say tortilla. I almost get a heart attack, right? and I speak to them in Spanish and sometimes in Spanglish. But I guess it's difficult. I don't get offended, but I do want it for them to not be embarrassed of their history and their descent, their lineage, right? That doesn't mean that, oh, you're a Gomez. I mean, you know how many freaking Gomez are in the world.
That's right.
Don't care much about the lineage of the last name, right? But it's more about that you are like feeling bad on being brown or feeling bad on being Hispanic, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would say it's a really good point. In Houston, I don't know, Hispanics are at least the majority, minority, or whatever you want to call it. Large number of Hispanics here in Houston, but I think like it's predicted to even overtake and become the majority ethnicity in Houston. So it's pretty interesting. So I think in terms of your girls growing up here, I think they can take some pride and know that eventually it might take over as the majority here. But I think that's pretty interesting. Me growing up here in Texas, I didn't see too much. I maybe just didn't pay attention too much, but I grew up going to church, to a Hispanic church. Always went to like a Spanish speaking church. And that's like, that's one of the ways actually that I kept up my Spanish, at least by hearing it, able to remember some of it. And so, that's normal. I always had a lot of family around, so I always saw a lot of Hispanics, brown people, just in general. So I think that was never an issue. School was maybe a little bit different, right? Didn't see, I hate to say this, but like in more of the advanced classes, there's just a handful of Hispanics in the advanced classes. But, this is 25, 30 years ago, so maybe it was a little bit different. It's probably different today.
I mean, right now, the funny part is that, like in the school, one of my daughter's teacher, she basically, I'm not sure if she didn't know, the way that she framed it, she said something to my daughter. My daughter is 11. She is like, do you know, to the whole class, do you know what Mexico brought to Texas? It's like, actually, Texas was part of Mexico.
Right.
So my daughter was confused, right? Because again, she's kind of learning. And I said, no, sweetie, this is what happened. Yeah, you was part of it and there was a conflict, etc. Right? But yeah, it was interesting to me that the teacher kind of had that dynamic, right? Which I have to just do a fact check there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really true. I mean, it's pretty interesting, but you can't know. I give them benefit of the doubt. Usually, they can't know the history of everything.
Yeah,
but there are some basic things, like, I mean, Texas was a part of Mexico, and it was part of that. Why don't we move on into some of the kind of the history stuff that we were planning on talking about?
Yeah, I think that is very interesting to see how, because I start thinking on that, right? Well, everybody kind of knows the conquistadores, right? But did you know how many sailors, warriors, or whatever you want to call it, the conquistadors were, that they conquered basically the Aztecs? Do you know how many? It's 600, man.
What?
Yes.
Didn't put up much of a fight there, huh?
That's the interesting thing, right? Everybody, when somebody's thinking about this, you sometimes you have to go to the history, right? Like how it play out, and it could be and you can transition this into a business, right? You can transition
Mm-hmm.
this into a different things. But
Yeah.
yeah, in the 1500s, basically everybody knows they actually, their pitch, it was to try to found the fountain of youth, right?
Okay.
So that was kind of their pitch, and that's what they got the crown, to be able to give them some investment, right? Some money for the boats and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Then, but yeah, when Hernan Cortez and all of those guys, they came with very little people. So, which is interesting to think, okay, how these guys did it, right?
Yeah, they conquered
And
like a whole nation.
almost a continent, right? I mean, the whole
Right.
continent, right? So, and I think that there were a couple things, right? And number one, they have more technology. So this podcast, we're trying to call out some of the tech, right?
Right.
I mean, in that time, like firearms, canyons, right, boats, and even sometimes the using the horses, right? Like that was the technology in that time, which they got it, right?
Yeah.
So that was something that it kind of helped to be able, when Aztecs and other cultures, they have a very rudimentary tools.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the thing. But sometimes technology is also knowledge, right? Um, Intellectual property, IP,
That's a
which
good
is
point.
like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, which the other one was like they started doing some kind of negotiations with people that they were around. So even with other indigenous cultures, right? And one of them, at least for the Aztecs, there was one culture that was the people from Tlaxcala,
Mm-hmm.
which basically they kind of partnered up with the Spanish, because the Aztecs, they were asking for a lot of taxes. It's always taxes, man.
Taxes. Yeah.
So
Taxes, money.
it's always money, right? So so then they partnered up, and that's how they were able to grow their army. And on top of that, it was more about the sicknesses, right? They
The
start bringing
disease
like
that kind of came over,
all
right?
of the disease, man. So with all together, it's a complex thing that happened, right?
Yeah.
But what's your take there with this that I'm telling you?
I mean, actually, have you seen this John Leguizamo special that was on Netflix? It was something about Latin something or Latino history or the real
No.
Latino history. It came out not too long ago. John Leguizamo has been, I think, doing a lot of. He's a big proponent, a champion for Latinos and getting the message out there. So I recommend anyone that's listening go out and watch it. It's
Yeah.
pretty good. It's really entertaining. It's kind of like a one man sketch approach, so it's kind of like he's a comedian, so that's his approach. But he does have a lot of good interesting information, and yeah, he touches on some of this, like some of this is maybe like we don't have all the information. A lot of information and history was destroyed when the Spanish came, right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this. I travel a lot, and one place close to Mexico City is this place called Puebla. And the
Mhm.
Spanish, they had a lot of different churches. I like almost 300 churches. I don't remember how many, right?
Yeah.
But there is actually one at the top of a hill, and that hill is actually underneath. There's a pyramid.
Ah, that's pretty
And it's,
cool.
yeah, and not just that. That pyramid is the biggest of all time pyramids, like
Oh,
bigger than
really? Okay.
yeah,
And the
bigger than
Egyptian
the
ones and stuff.
Egyptians, or the ones in that from the Aztecs, and the ones from the Mayans.
Hmm.
And still, the church is on the top over there. So it is very interesting how everything turned out, right? Because uh, all of these, and that's literally our culture and our beliefs, right? The belief system is usually, when you ask a Hispanic, the majority of the percentages, they are telling you that they're Christian, right?
Uh-huh.
And yeah, came from the Spanish.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In a way, like it's really sad to see like that we lost a lot of history,
Mhm.
through all of this, and I think it's important through like our efforts that we're trying to do now is trying to
Yeah.
bring some of that back, try to educate some folks that are really interested in hearing about it. I think it's pretty cool. One of the things that's kind of related to that, speaking kind of on, I don't know if you'd call it technology, maybe biotechnology, just like 23andMe. I've done that, and I got to see where my ancestry is from, right? I think we talked a little bit about this. We both have shared Jewish ancestry. We're both
Yes, we do.
2%
And when
Ashkenazi.
I actually check it because a friend of mine, he's Jewish, and he's like, and he told me, you actually might be Jewish. And I said, me? Like no, I don't think so. Like, dude, a lot of Hispanics, believe it or not, they have it, the genes, right? Because all of the different cultures and some of the all of the traditions back on those days, right? And 23andMe is able to figure out from the mom side where all of the different moms have been in different, and they actually have a map, right, that you can trace it back to how do they move around. At least for my 23andMe, dude, I have everything except India.
Really?
I have Europe. I have like a little bit of China, believe it or not. Maybe that's the reason why I have some facial expressions. Yes, Island. Yeah. Then Russian as well.
Oh, really?
Which is it's very, very, very strange. And then a good portion in Spain, and as well on Central America on the indigenous side.
Yeah, same thing. Like I see, there's African, I see like Southern European. I think there is some Asian. So it's really interesting. I mean, it's pretty cool to see that. But like I think like in Mexico, like a lot of those systems that hold all the historical information of the lineages and stuff like that, I hear that they're not there. I'm interested because I was looking at getting my Mexican citizenship, so I would have dual citizenship there, and then I thought, well, I wonder if I can keep going up my family tree, because I think on my dad's side there's some Italian, and I thought, well, maybe I can get a European passport through that, or citizenship, because you can inherit it, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, so some countries they allow you, but a question there. How come? Do you want to be a spy or something like that?
I got my go bag. Well, I don't know. I'm always kind of. I feel like it gives me more options in the future. You never know how things are going to turn out, whether it's climate change or political stuff. I think it just gives you options, and maybe down the line, maybe I want to move. Once I retire, I might want to stay somewhere for several years or something. I think it just gives me a little bit more flexibility.
I sometimes I say, you know what? I'm human and I'm a citizen of the world. Right? So at the end of the day, depends on and also depends on the amount of money, right? Like if you're into crypto and things, I have noticed that people is moving to Puerto Rico because of the taxes purposes.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I know someone, I mentioned it, and we talked recently. We happened to bump into each other at a friend's dinner, and he's like, Eric, oh my goodness, are you still into Bitcoin? I remember we went to dinner like years ago. We went to like some steakhouse, and we have a mutual friend, and I just hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? Blah blah blah. You should look into it. He was a banker. He's in the finance industry. So I'm like, oh, he might actually be into this, and he ran with it apparently. I didn't know, but he's like, hey man, thanks to you, like I went down the rabbit hole. He looked into Bitcoin specifically. And he's like, hey, I'm moving to El Salvador, I think he said. They've got the I forget what they call the crypto beach over there.
Yes.
Playa. Yeah. Anyways, he's like, I'm trying to figure out how to move over there. He wants to move. He wants to set up a business. He says there's so much opportunity over there. So I'm like, wow. Like you just never know. Like I also had other friends. Like you just never know who's going to pick it up and who's. It takes a certain amount of times for you to hear about it, for you to really get like, oh, like I need to look into this. Do you remember how many times you had heard about it before you made the jump into it?
I did maybe like 2-3 times. Right. The part that was hard for me, because again, this is like right now is like obviously everybody kind of have here, right, crypto.
Yeah.
But in that time, it was just literally there was no transactions. People were not even receiving as a payment. If I remember that in that time, somebody sent up like, hey, I want to sell a pizza. Just send me and I'll send you some Bitcoins, right? That's when we started seeing how the transition of trying to pay things. And unfortunately, in that time, it was for bad things, right? For drugs. And that's what it gave a bad rep at the beginning, right? With all of the Silk Road and all of that. So, but yeah, I think that it took me a couple times and there was not a lot of information. I started reading the manifesto, right? The paper, basically, the whole paper on what it is, which I recommend people to do if you're into tech and if you're into this kind of a thing for Satoshi Nakamoto, right?
Satoshi, yeah.
So I mean, it's the whole thing is like from a movie, but yeah, it was a couple times, and I remember that when we start getting more serious, all of us, right? When we start just literally kind of mining, then I start just mining myself with Jack, right? But yeah, it took a couple times for me to pull the trigger. Now, in retrospective, though. You know what? It would be a best deal instead of what we did, just to buy it, just buying it.
I'm like, no, yeah, for sure.
We were trying to mine and create all of the hardware, like I have to wire my electricity in my house, right? Like
I was like,
$1,000.
Yeah, $1,000 on the. I'm like, yeah, like for those of y'all thinking like we hit the gold mine here. No, I mean, it wasn't quite like that. We went down the path of mining, and yeah, for the amount of money that we spent trying to mine, we should have really just bought it. That's really, so don't feel bad if you missed out on all the mining stuff. Just, you can buy now and you're going to be set okay for the future. But
because in some point Coinbase came out, like and I don't remember the years, but they came out and then you start buying it. They did have limits though. That was the only problem.
That's true.
That you couldn't buy enough, right? So and I was very bullish on it. So then I was asking friends, hey, help me out to buy 10 coins, whatever, right? You too, yeah.
And, I bought some for you. Yeah, I remember.
You too?
Yeah, you paid me back, so that's a good thing. I should have kept him. Like, sorry, Gomez, these are mine.
Yeah, the one that I remember is George. I remember George as well. But anyways, I think that's part of the. Maybe we can bring it out that topic though, which is the BlackRock topic. And right now, I'm not sure if you're familiar who is BlackRock. Maybe I can give a little intro for everyone.
They control the government, right? Something like
basically, that. They control everything.
They control everything.
So they are. You think that sometimes a president, like whoever is the president, might be no, guys. Who is really behind the scenes is BlackRock and Vanguard. They own everything that gets funded. They own it, right? And the ETF, for all of you that might not know what is an ETF, it stands for it's called an ETF, but it's an exchange traded fund. Think about it like a stock. A stock is a piece of a company, a slice of a company. But an ETF it basically allows, they call it instrument. I don't know why finance people, they always try to put like very difficult.
It gives you power by having your own jargon. It just gives people power.
I guess. But in layman words, imagine that it's just a bag, right? Literally. And if let's say that you have candies, right? And each candy is just a piece of a stock, right? In this case, a company, right?
Yeah. You go shopping during Halloween, you get the candy bag that has the Skittles, the Snickers, the Dum Dum Pops. It's got a mix of everything in there, right?
That's right. And and that's a freaking ETF. And some of them, they are adding some value, but some of them, they are ripoff, because guess what? Just to hold that bag, it's like, imagine if your cousin tells you, hey, I'm going to hold that bag and I'm going to charge you 2%, 3% of the whole bag. And those are the hedge funds managers, right?
They make money.
That's how they make money. And again, some of them, they lower the commissions, which is worth it, because some of them, they actually have 500, right? Like maybe 500 type of different candies, which is a pain to be able to collect them all. So, but that's basically an ETF, and there's a bunch of ETFs for everything. For basically, there's an ETF for anything, right? For oil, for electrical cars, for whatever, right? Each of the different industries. So why this one is important? Number one is because BlackRock is basically well recognized in the finance basically world, right? Like I said, they own everything, and there many companies, they have been trying to get the approval for the SEC. The SEC is basically the organization that controls kind of all of the stock market exchange. Basically, they regulate all of that. They're the commission.
It's a governance.
And the government, basically the government branch. And they have declined. A lot of companies have tried, right, to be able to get an ETF because it's hard. This podcast is for people that they like tech. But even for techies, trust me, I know I have seen many or hear many stories that they get their coins, right? Whatever crypto, and they lose it, they get hacked, or they sometimes they are buying a hardware and the hardware is still in beta and they lose their coins. I mean, horror stories, right? And sometimes they are putting all the life savings there, right? And again, different rabbit hole there. But the importance here is that these guys have a threshold like a 550, like whatever submissions, and only one has been declined. So the odds are pretty
they've got better odds. If BlackRock's getting in, you should have a little bit of confidence. So I think that's really good. I think they have multi-trillions of dollars that they are managing. So they're a really big player. It gives the whole Bitcoin crypto space legitimacy. I think a lot of people assume that once these big, what they call institutional players are getting into Bitcoin, that's really going to start the demand instead of it just being retail or like people just like us trying to buy Bitcoin. People, big hedge funds that are managing big funds, a lot of money, they're going to start buying. This gives them that opportunity to do it easily. I think some of the tools out there today for investing really just are meant to bring the price down. I think it makes it easier to short, but not necessarily for the price to go up. So I think this is a really good sign.
Yeah, and I think that so why? By the way, this is full disclosure. This is not a financial advice.
No,
we are just two dudes on the internet, right? So
good call. Good call, Mando.
So yeah, it's interesting, right? That people just pull the trigger and do their own thing, right? So again, we invest on that, right? And we have been investing for many years ago. But the part that I'm very curious or very optimistic is that I see countries in Latin America, and just imagine like Argentina or Venezuela, where their currency is just lost their value, 98%, right? Imagine if you have $1 and now the whole value is just gone, it's just poof. Right.
Yeah, they've got that runaway inflation problem, which, our inflation is pretty high at this point, at least historically for the U.S., right? We've got 5%. That's what.
Well, that's what they tell you, man. Like, but, just go to the grocery store, right?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Try to buy a house. Did your house only increase 10%?
Yeah, exactly.
Some of my properties actually double in a year and a half.
Right? Yes, this is true. I mean, and that. The taxes hurt too.
Well, I mean, there are many ways, right? You can do a 1031 exchange, 1031, or you can refinance.
Yeah.
Right. So, how wealthy get wealthy? You just need to understand these type of things, right? So that's a maybe we need
a good topic for us to kind of talk about.
Let's expand that because there is a bunch of things there for us to expand there. Maybe on an episode for real estate. But going back to BlackRock and why it's important for Latin America, it allows countries like El Salvador, like Bukele, man, it was a big balls that guy had, right? To be able to, I mean, and you can see a trickle effect. The next one might be Brazil, right? That they might do it. But I think that is bringing a little more on the kind of follow the legislation and make it more legit, right? And now these institutional players, they will add some maybe funds from pensions,
Mhm.
and it's just money is gonna flow, right? Well, at least that's what all of the Bitcoin heads and maxis we
The
think.
maxis are thinking are hoping for. But yeah, I mean, either way, the space is growing. I think they're setting up guardrails, so people have proper guidance in how to properly invest, how do you set up accounts, things like that. So I think it's all part of the maturation process, right?
Mhm.
Eventually is going to become the norm, is going to become, main street. And kind of tying this back to kind of, I think what we're starting to talk about. Um, History just is determined by the victors, right? So
Mhm.
going back to where we were at, I think once Bitcoin and how all of that kind of develops and turns out, we're going to be able to change the story of Bitcoin or crypto is just used for drugs or nefarious purposes into, it's really enabling a lot of life saving technologies, really giving people power again, back from inflation and things like that. Like that's going back to like, okay, who ended up like going back to what we were talking about with the pre Hispanic days and kind of the Aztecs and Mayans and things like that. I mean, how does it tie back to that? I mean, I think a lot of the stories that we're hearing now, we don't really know what happened. One, because we lost a lot of history, a lot of it was destroyed. You mentioned
Yeah.
the churches and stuff like that. um how does that going to play for us? I mean, moving forward, do we just
I think that is just. Have you heard about this guy Ty Lopez?
uh
Knowledge.
I gave him my email one time, and now I get a bunch of
Dude, the guy knows how to market. He's a genius, a
yeah.
marketing genius. Everything that he says on his ads
uh
is like literally just crafted just to be able to just push your buttons, right? Anyways, my point here is knowledge, right?
hmm
To learning these concepts on finance, to be able to try to understand uh, kind of the different ways, right? Because you have maybe different paths. We literally resonate with leaders slash entrepreneurs slash people that they are in that way, but sometimes you can actually do it on your job, right?
yeah.
I was watching this weekend, uh, uh, basically Flaming Hot. Have you watched it?
Yes. It was pretty cool. I mean, it's on Netflix for those of y'all that right. No. Disney Plus. We said it earlier,
Disney
right?
Plus, yes.
Disney Plus for those of y'all that haven't seen it. But what was your take on it?
It's a drag to riches story, right? And basically, spoiler alerts, right?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, right? But again, it's one of those type of stories, right? What kind of intrigued me, it was the how he was a janitor for a long time, man.
hmm
um I don't know how I feel about that, right? Like maybe each person has their different levels, right? But dude, if I'm doing the same thing like 10 years, I don't think that I ever have done that, man. No, again, I'm not judging. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking it, right?
hmm
If it is good or bad, right? Or maybe it's just another way, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
that kind of bugged me a little bit.
if you think about it, so just to put it into context, and again, spoiler alerts, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but this story happened during the 80s. It was another time when there was a lot of economic turmoil here in the US, a lot of runaway inflation, hard jobs were hard to come by. He had a young family, kids that he had to support. So in a way, I mean, that's a real scenario for a lot of the folks that are here,
Yeah,
the Hispanics in this country. Like they are in these situations, and not just Hispanics. This is across the board. Things
yeah,
can get really tough. Finding jobs that are even willing to pay, a good living wage. That's a big discussion right now, right? But in the movie, this is the time frame. So they framed it as like, hey, he needed a job, right? So he got one. But I think what kept him there, part of it was this idea that he thought he could make a difference. He had a good idea, and he thought this was his way to jump, to make that
yeah.
next step, make that next level. Because honestly, I would say this: a lot of Hispanics may not get recognized as someone that has potential to move up within a
Yep.
company. That's just kind of the way things are sometimes, right?
Let me tie up with what we were going with the history, right? And we miss obviously some steps on there, like the American Mexican War, right, with the Alamo and all of that, right? We skip all of those, but I think that what happened, it was that the Hispanic communities, they were uh, basically all of these different. In some point, Mexico had Spain, France, with different wars and different people. They start kind of pushing sometimes some of the ideas that, and it became a little bit almost submissive though. The way that we use Spanish is very apologetic. If you think about it, it's like, hey, please, could you do this? I'm sorry to bug you,
Mm-hmm.
And if not, you sound rude, right? But that's actually like, and it's funny because you go to Spain though, and they laugh at us, like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like the Spanish is actually, it's funny, right? It's funny for them
Mm-hmm.
because they are not like that, right? They are very direct, they are very blunt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like more like closer to I guess English ideals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of Latin America, it's very cordial, very all of that, and I think that it just goes back to what we are saying on the movie, right? How this
Mm-hmm.
person is like, well, okay, I need to, I need to be, from the bottom. I need to learn. What I'm trying to say here is, until you start actually not leveling up to see the value, like the value that you can provide, which in this case, this guy, in some point, it click the mindset to say, you know what, uh, you can be a leader, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
be a CEO, and something click in his mind that he has more control than what it is in the environment, right?
Than what he thinks, right? Someone, but in a way, he still needed the permission. Even in the movie, he needed permission to think like a CEO. Someone else told him, think like this, and
Yeah.
that's when he got the wheels turning. But just, I mean, folks have to know you don't need permission from someone else.
No.
You, it's always up to you. Everyone makes choices. Like, you can always make that call. You can always start a podcast. You can always try starting a business. You don't always need money. Money, of course, helps, but there's things that you can do, and I think it's a message that a lot of Hispanos don't have. Like,
Yeah.
we don't see it. Fortunately, I would say, like, my mom set that path. I saw that she had a business. She could set her own hours. It was still really hard. Like, there, like, growing up, it was still really hard. It's not like we had a lot of money or anything like that. We were probably considered lower middle class, but it's still, at that point, we still had enough to, like, get a computer, even if it was like gifted or, like, secondhand from someone else. Those are little things that change trajectory of, like, where you're going. And I think it's important to be open. Like, we're talking about some woo woo stuff here, right? The manifestation and stuff like that. But part of it is preparation. Be open to those things and be able to see, hey, sometimes these things come along. You got to jump on it. You don't need permission to do something
Yeah.
different.
And which I think that if the guy continued to be just cleaning and not adding value, nothing wrong with that, right? I think that is more about understanding, having the awareness
Yeah.
to be able to say, okay, how I can do more, right? But that was the only thing. Everything else, like the movie. By the way, I was noticing that Eva Longoria,
My cousin.
you mentioned it before that she's your cousin. How close of a cousin?
I always call. I don't know. Well, speaking of, back to, like, how we were talking about 23andMe, we share the same haplogroup. So in 23andMe, that means we have a bigger chunk of shared DNA. So I just,
what is that? I never hear that that word before.
Haplogroup, man, I'm not an expert. I will tell you that up front right now. But all I know is, like, there's several main haplogroups that you can be a part of, right? I don't know how many they are, but typically, like, there's maybe, I don't know, and I'm making some of this up, but let's say there's 6 haplogroups that you might see within America or whatever. I happen to be in the same haplogroup as Eva Longoria. I think I saw that somewhere. I don't know, but anyways,
You know what? Maybe I should bring my buddy. He he's into biotech, right? He actually is in the top, so maybe we should invite him.
Yeah, that'd be a good topic to explore. But
for sure.
I think she did a great job on this movie. You know, I think it has like inspirational things like Si se puede. That's always a very cool thing, something that's real close to us. So I think she did a great job. Now, there's scandals already about the story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's always gonna be kind of that, right? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I always take with a grain of salt, right? To be honest, sometimes doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's true or not, right? Like yeah, I think that in my point of view is she did a good job on the production, right? It's an inspiring story, even if maybe because right now for the audience, they're saying that maybe it was not true.
Maybe embellish the story a little bit, right?
So maybe Hollywood or whatever, they just made it. But once again, I think that the message is what Eric was pointed out, which is you don't need permission, right? You don't need approval, and sometimes it might be your mom, sometimes it might be your wife, right, or your husband, right? I think that you just feel it, and I think that when you feel it and you just do, and you just become better, right? Just doing it over and over, iteration. I mean, we have been in tech for a while, and that's what we do. Sometimes we don't know what is going on, right? You just trial and error, right? Even the brightest minds, right? Like when they have a SpaceX, right? I mean, like some of them, they are failures. So just trial and error.
Yeah, I think that's true. Trial and error. I mean, fail fast is what they say. So I think that's also kind of always good. And by the way, I always try to find a way to support Hispanic projects. I think it's very important. That's the only way that we can improve things for, our culture, our people, Latinos in general is, we got to support each other. And, if we band together, there's nothing that can really keep us back.
And basically just hit us up in Twitter or whatever, find us, we are there. If you have a project, we can take a look and advise you or whatever. But I think that is important to keep, because sometimes it's a little bit about the experience, right? Sometimes maybe we have done so many projects.
Yeah.
so we had lots of experience. Yeah, for sure.
Very true. Well, I think I want to start closing up our show for today, but just a little teaser. Maybe next time we wanted to talk a little about some of the tech that was in Teslas, but I don't think we're going to have time for that today. But I wanted to let everybody know that we may be a little bit closer on having a name for the podcast.
Dun, dun, dun. Drums, please.
Exciting times here. Okay. Get this. Tech-Mex. You say it fast enough. Tex-Mex. Tex-Mex. Tech-Mex Podcast. Tech-Mex Podcast. That's kind of our working name right now. We're gathering feedback. If you hate it or you love it, you let us know in the comments or send me a text. I'm not giving y'all my number yet, but
his phone number is 832.
At least give him the Google number, right?
Okay, 713.
Oh no. Yeah, but look towards that, and it's kind of a funny story here. So we were talking about this. It's like back and forth. Like, what should the name be? We want to be inclusive, and we're like, is this inclusive enough? We want to, support and be a spot for all Latinos, not just Mexicans. But I think it kind of goes back to, hey, we both have that shared Mexican culture. We're both in Texas. We've got a lot of ties to it. Tex-Mex or Tech-Mex makes a lot of sense. So I think it might stick. I think it's pretty good. We do have some maybe number 2, number 3 ideas that are maybe more Latino focused, things like that, Latin media or Latino power, things like that. So we're still working on it, but I think we landed on a pretty good one.
Yeah, because the other one was more generic. We like it as well, which is like Latam power, right? But it sounds too activist.
Yeah,
but again, just tell us which one do you like, right? In the comments, or if you hate them all, just propose, right? Yeah. I mean, positive,
we're open.
constructive feedback always, right?
Yeah. It's really funny. Speaking of feedback, you know where I got a lot of my feedback from?
Man, don't tell me that was AI.
ChatGPT, y'all. ChatGPT.
Oh, shit. My brother Sam,
Hey, Altman. Hey, he did a hell of a job with this thing. But hey, don't make Keelan mad. He helped start it too, right? You're gonna get
I have stories. Yeah, I have stories. Don't get me started.
ChatGPT. Hey, it wasn't like a straightforward process or anything. I consider myself now a prompt engineer. What do you think?
Oh, look at you. Now you have a title there, huh?
Yeah.
Mr. Prompt Engineer. So for the audience, if you haven't played with ChatGPT, do it. If not, your job will be replaced if you don't know how to.
Website, if you don't know it, chat.openai.com, I think.
.com. And you just sign up and are able to interact. It's like any other chat, right? It has an input text. But the keyword now that techies are using is called prompt. Mm-hmm. And basically what it is just the statement or the question that you want the AI to do. And the AI, people is thinking that, Terminator, and they're going to just kill us all, right, with Skynet. No. We are far away from that.
Yeah.
What AI is pretty good is for basically an engine of thinking, like rationalizing, right, arguments or words. So in this case, tell us how I'm actually curious how you are able to prompt or do the questions on the engineering to be able to get to help you with the name.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe in a future episode we can, show people how it's done, because I know a lot of people aren't too sure. But it was not necessarily quick or straightforward. It was like having a conversation with somebody, and ultimately, 20 minutes later, we're like, Tech-Mex Podcast, and we're like, okay, perfect. So we're gonna run with that for now, unless my buddy ChatGPT tells me something else in the future. But I think we might have a winner. We'll see.
Nice. I like it, though. I like it.
Well, wrapping up, I think we covered a lot of different things. I think we teased some things that we may talk about in the future. So again, if you got any ideas or any suggestions of things y'all want to hear about or talk about, just drop us a note. I'm at Net Shadows for the moment on Twitter. Mando?
The Mando Gomez.
So hit us up. We will see y'all again next time. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Have a good one, y'all.
Cheers. Peace.
Dale.